teach you to get richer like millions, baby. You really about to fill your savings. You about to have multiple streams to pass your children, baby. Let me teach you to get your credit on track in the long run. You'll make it all back at Catalyst and watch it all psychology black on firm, but we ain't all black.
Hey, everybody. It's your girl, Constance Carter, and it's a Monday, a beautiful Monday night. How is everybody doing? I want to welcome you in to the Fly Nubian Queen, the channel for melanated people just like you and you and you. And I want you to make sure that you're texting the word Queens to 31996. Text the word Queens to 31996 so you can get all of our alerts, okay? And as you come in, make yourself comfortable, make yourself at home. What's up, Maximus Daryl? What's good with you, bro? I am great. I am doing so awesome. I'm feeling really good tonight. And, I just wanted to kind of talk about something that I had seen today. But before we do that, I want to see where you guys are hailing from. Where are you guys watching from? Because I know we have people that watch from all over the world. And I just wanted to acknowledge you. And so go ahead and put in the comments box where you're hailing from, where you're watching from as you come in. Make sure you make yourself at home. And also, guys, I want to make sure that you are subscribing to the Fly Nubian Queen channel on YouTube and on Facebook. And also, nobody works harder than Constance Carter. What's up? Okay, you're from Athens, Georgia. Good to see you guys. So, as we talk today, I wanted to talk about something that it's really close to my heart because I am an avid HBCU fan. I'm a fanatic of HBCUs. So how many people here know what an HBCU is and, are sending your kids to HBCUs or have attended an HBCU? So if you could put in the comments box, how many folks here have either attended an HBCU or sending your kids to HBCUs? Do you believe in HBCUs? Some people think that HBCUs should be banned and outlawed. Some people, and there's unfortunately, a lot of Black people that I've heard even say that. So what do you think about HBCUs? Cheryl Lynn, I see you out there from Metro Detroit. Louise is from East Harlem, New York City. What's happening? Fleck, finish your 3 X's from Tennessee State. Oh, you went to Tennessee State, right on. So Daryl, you said you believe in HBCUs. A lot. There's my daughter attends AAMU. Okay, right on. DC, proud HBCU. Okay, where'd you graduate from, Melinda? Which HBCU did you graduate from? Because I know that for my kids, like I didn't go to a HBCU. I got a PhD, a public high school diploma, but for me, it was always extremely important that I sent my kids to an HBCU. First of all, I'm in California, and they have never seen or experienced anything like what can happen at an HBCU. They've never been in a classroom with more than probably 3 Black people. So it was really important that they got that experience, that culture. Now, I'm not a big, college, I believe is important. I believe it's important if you are in a certain field. Right. So I think college is important if you're going to be a doctor or some type of specialized service. But I do believe college, across the board is kind of overrated. That's just my opinion. You don't need college to be successful. You could be successful without college. That's why, the world is run by C students and not by the super A's and the B's. But I sent my daughter to college knowing that, not thinking that she was actually going to really get something out of it for her degree, because I knew her, her degree is in marketing. So you can kind of learn marketing on your own. I sent my daughter to college, to an HBCU, to Hampton University, because I wanted to make sure that she got that experience that she would never be able to get for the rest of her life. And so I believe HBCUs are so important. And then there was a mass migration a couple of years ago. Within the last couple of years, people were saying, send your kids to HBCUs because, we want to make sure that we support the HBCUs and these professional, the NBA, the NFL, they should be able to, pick the pool from HBCUs. My sons are avid basketball players. They want to be in the NBA, right? And what they're saying is, Mom, I got to go to a D1 school because, I have a better chance of getting picked up. I'm like, you ain't even the best of the best on your AAU team. So how you going to get picked up in the NBA? You going to a HBCU. So if they don't see you at a HBCU, they ain't going to see you. That's my philosophy, right? But I do, now that I see, the headlines of what Deion Sanders said, I do see that these people, these college recruits aren't even, or these NFL recruiters are not even looking at HBCU players. And there are tons of talented young men that are playing on these teams for HBCU. So, the question is, are they doing this to punish the kids for going to HBCUs because there was a mass migration there? So I'm going to bring Charles on. Charles attended North Carolina A&T. So, and he's also an athlete. So he has a little bit of insight, but I want to bring him on and talk a little bit about this. So what's up, Charles?
Hey, how's it going?
Awesome. How are you?
I'm doing well.
So what is your thought about that, Charles, about what's going on with the NFL and why they're not recruiting from HBCUs?
This year specifically, I think it's very interesting that absolutely no NFL draft picks got selected from any HBCU, which is typically there's about one or two, maybe three, like someone said, there's usually about 8% that actually might get drafted, which is, it is what it is. And, a lot of times they say it's about the whole idea, the fact that, well, they're not playing as good of a competition because they're not going to a D1 school, all of these other arguments. But in reality, the talent is the talent, right? And I've known some players that have actually made it to the NBA and to the NFL from HBCUs. But in addition to that, you also see kind of the development. So my belief is that it is absolutely in some way a punishment to those students who are making that choice to actually attend HBCUs, partly because they're recognizing what's going on at the D1 universities and they're refusing to support a lot of the antics that are going on there, especially as it relates to African-American students. So I think that the NFL, this is kind of their pushback to that, to say, hey, you're not only, and also too in partnership with the NAC, with the NAA, not the NAACP, but the NC2A, with regards to just, how it's affecting their bottom line.
Jojo said, I believe we need to have our own league. That's just me. Dwayne said it's the old boy network with so many coaches know one another. Just like you don't have black ownership in the NFL, right? Yeah. So that all is true. So, I mean, what do you do? Because I think a lot of these kids were trying to make a stand like, no, we're going to support, black colleges. And so then by them supporting the black colleges, now they're getting punished and folks aren't seeing them.
Well, it's absolutely rough for the student, right? Because you have to make the conscious decision. Do I want to go where I'm going to be better treated, where I'm going to get a better education? Or do I want to go where they're pulling from the talent? My hard sell thing on that is that we have to make sure, first and foremost, that we're not sending our kids to school as tools, right? And what I mean by that is that they absolutely can't be there because of their athletics, their ability to play basketball or to play football. Like, let them go there for their academics. That's got to be the number one thing. They should be going there to make it to the NBA or to the NFL, but also to get an education and then also be in charge of the decision that they make. I think the caveat to that sometimes is that if not enough people are doing it, what you're doing on that scale doesn't necessarily make the impact, right? For example, just recently within this last year, we have about 4 or 5 of the top so-called NBA recruits and college recruits, 20, 24, 25, 26 that are going to HBCUs. So a couple are going to Hampton, a couple are going to A&T, Norfolk State, schools like that. And, my first thought for them was like, dang, I wonder how they're going to be treated in the draft pool, because that is definitely going to have an impact. But you got to remember, especially with basketball, and that's because I know more about it, typically they're following these kids all the way from junior high school, all the way up. So you kind of know who's going to go to the NBA probably your freshman year in high school, unless you just have some type of amazing growth spurt. And, there's far and few in between who have actually done that, but there are some.
Yeah. So I want to ask you guys, what do you guys think? All of you guys that are watching, is the NFL punishing athletes for not attending HBCUs instead of PWIs or D1 schools? Are they punishing athletes? Are our athletes, our young men that decide that they want to go and support Black colleges, to bring awareness to Black colleges, are they being punished for doing so? And so whatever your opinion is, one way or the other, if you'd like to be a part of the show, we want you to text or call the number 209-362-4628, because we want your opinion. We have a lot of fun in this way. And, of course, we love your engagement and interaction. So make sure you call or text 209-362-4628 to be a part of today's show. And Charles will give you the instructions on what you need to do. He'll give you the link to join in. Dwayne Harris said that NCAA and big television money have their impact on the issue. Jerry Rice, RB, Walter Payton, and Doug Williams went to HBCUs and they all won Super Bowls. So if that's true, so then why is there a big pushback in 2021? Are they saying that the talent pool just isn't there?
I think most of the talent pool is coming from Black students, though, all over the world. I just think that by and large, the hardest part for us is just getting the acceptance, at that level, on the wider scale with the NC2A. And partly because, like what the gentleman said, these NC2A schools, these D1 schools, they're very much so tapped in financially to what's going on. So how many HBCU teams do you see playing, with the exception of maybe the Bayou Classic and a couple of other ones? Do you see them actually on TV, on a regular basis? Like, you don't get to see their tournaments like you do the ACC and the SEC tournaments. So, and all the sold out, TV and ticket sales that go on when they actually are playing. So there's a lot of money tied into football and basketball. Most of these universities are getting the bulk of their money from their athletics programs and the sponsorships that come with that. So, you got to think about that from their perspective, and and that's what they're really, really buying into.
Yeah.
I think for African American students, though, like I said before, the reality for us is that we're not given the choice.
Yeah.
Right? They're either saying, you either play ball the way we want you to play ball, or you won't have an opportunity to play ball at all. And that's just kind of how it's been done over the last few years. And
I would say the NFL, more so than any other league, is the part of the good old boy network, right? Because remember what happened with Kaepernick. Let's talk about that. Kaepernick protesting, and look at what happened to Kaepernick. They sat him down. They basically destroyed his career because he spoke out. Now, NFL is totally different in that the NFL allows, for them to protest, and NFL allows their players for their voices to be heard from the players. And you got to think about, for the NFL, do you think it's going to be the same way for the NBA? I don't, because I think the NFL is very intentional on how they punish Black people for not doing what the hell that they said that they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I do think there's going to be somewhat of a difference. There are more people migrating to HBCUs from high school that are in basketball more so than football. However, you did see, like this recent year, you saw Deion Sanders' son, who was initially scheduled to go to a 5-star school. He actually went to go play for his father. And there was a couple of other recruits that they had this year that went and played for HBCUs. Typically, HBCUs are D1 2A schools. And what that basically means is that you're slightly a division underneath what your D1 school would be. But nonetheless, you do see that there's some attention being paid to these HBCUs, which is great. You got Shaq's son. You got the number one junior in high school right now that's going to a different school. That's going to a HBCU. So basketball is a little bit different. It cycles a little bit different. I think the politics are definitely different there. It's more of a players league than it is an owners league. So you see a lot of the players making a lot more of the decisions as it relates to the league, and they're them being able to use their voice. The NFL, you're absolutely being told to shut up and play ball or sit down. And that's what we've seen, over the course of years. And they just, for whatever reason, they can't break through that barrier. And I'm not really sure why, how the NFL has such a stronghold on the league when the majority of the players are African American. Anyway,
it's like slavery. What that book, The $50 Million Slave or something like that, The $40 Million Slave? But it's culture. It's the culture inside the NFL that says, boy, you do it this way, and nobody bucks the system. So then the two people that did have bucked the system, which was Kaepernick and I forget the other brother that kneeled beside him, they're the ones that got the backlash. And it's like, no, it's like going back to the plantation. You rebel, what we gonna do? We're gonna.
And you can literally have someone like Jerry Jones, who's the owner for Dallas Cowboys, say, "Hey, if you kneel, you're getting kicked off the team." Like, that's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that culture follows, it's ingrained in the league. And so, what do? Is everybody has to take a stand at the same time. Everybody gotta, and it's not going to work with just ones and twos, but if majority, because really we have the power. These boys, these men, they have the power. It's kind of like, men and women in a relationship, right? Women allow men to have power, but women, we really have the power in a relationship. We really do. We just make y'all think that you got the power. So like we could really kind of control the relationship, but we allow men, because you guys think that, it's 10 men or 10 women to every man, that you guys can do whatever you want to do. But at the end of the day, we have the power. The same thing with the NFL is there's all of these players. If they stood together, these owners stand to lose millions and millions and millions of dollars if they took a stand. Why don't they take a stand?
Agreed. Again, it's really hard to tell and have an answer for that. That's a difficult one. I would imagine that they would be able to pool their resources the same way they did in the NBA. Mm-hmm. I think that the NBA leadership, though, and the NBA, the presidents and owners of these NBA teams, they're a little bit different. They're cut a little bit different. So that might be some of the reason. But either way, it's like that old adage, right, where you have one slave driver and 50 slaves, right? And he's driving the slaves. And until that point where those 50 slaves turn and look at that slave driver and say, wait a minute, we're not standing for this anymore, that's when the ship actually turns. So I don't know if it's an issue of they're just not willing to lose their money, lose their status, or whatever else the case may be. But in the fight for civil rights and justice, you have to be willing to risk it all, And
nobody's willing to risk it all. Nobody wants to lose their money. There's nobody that's willing to take a stand. And it's so funny because we've seen historically what could happen if we did take a stand, and that the possibilities of us taking a stand, but we still don't take a stand. So what I don't understand is why they're not willing to lose their money, why they're not willing to risk it. Keith said that the majority of, what was that, Keith? He said the majority of NFL are American Aborigines, Indigenous Americans. This is all about control. Okay. My daughter was told if she attended a non-HBCU college, she would get more financial aid and scholarships by going to mixed schools. That's interesting. Who told her that, Louise? Grant Redmond said the blacks are the ones that's seeing greatness in the black man playing in the white man's baseball league. Rather, we now see ourselves in this position begging for. Dwayne said they can outlast player holdouts who need child support money from mom. The owners are billionaires who don't even pay taxes. Only the NFL can say that, and that's true. Hood Comey said my cousin Rayford, Tennessee Prep. I lived with him when he was head coach at Ulster Community College. He changes lots of young brothers' lives. Awesome! Shout out to him. The richest players in the NFL right now are 5 black players. Black players are also the richest. That's true. So how come, then the question becomes, how come they can't pull themselves together? And I'm asking you guys that. So if you guys have an opinion about that, I want you to text. Don't call, because Charles is actually screening the calls. Are you getting calls right now?
Yeah.
Charles is actually screening calls right now as we speak. So make sure you actually text your text to 209-362-4628 to be a part of the show. And Charles will send you the link to the show. We just don't want to put it out there, out there for everybody, but we want to text this number 209-362-4628 to be a part of our show today. And we're asking the question, is the NFL punishing athletes for attending HBCUs? So we want to know what your opinion is on that. And while we do that, I want to make sure that you guys are signing up, or you guys have signed up for Constance Carter VIP. This is where I do a VIP, a one-on-one, or not one-on-one, but I do a VIP, a Q&A every Tuesday, and you could join. I think the first month is free, and it's only $59 per month. I have partnered with Dr. Boyce Watkins in bringing this information to you so that you can ask me any of the questions you want about, wealth, about finances, about credit, whatever about starting a business, all of those things. So make sure you go to ConstanceCarterVIP.com. So Charles, what's your thinking? Jojo Virgil said crabs in a bucket mentality is why we can't all pull together. What do you think about that? Do you think it's crabs in a bucket?
I think you have some that want to make the change, and I think you have some that just not on the same page. But that's just American society as Blacks anyway, right? We're dealing with that, and that's part of our struggle and our issue is that we don't know how to be one just yet. So our minds are all over the place on what's the right issue or what's the right way to attack a particular thing. And we're not really at a place where we can agree to disagree on certain things, but agree that there are certain things that we need to do collectively and get the job done. So what I mean by that is that we'll disagree on the smallest of things, and that will prevent us from doing the larger thing, which is stopping the antics that are going on in the NFL. So, in order for us to systematically decrease a lot of these things that we see, we have to be collective minded and we have to do things that way. And right now that crabs in a barrel mentality, we're all trying to get it. And I don't fault these gentlemen for all the hard work that they put into their sport, into their craft to get to the place that they've gotten to. At the same time, you can get more when you arrive there together. Right. So stop just leaning on your own talent and your own abilities to do more for you, because the impact that they're having is huge. But the cost of what they're doing, especially in the NFL, is huge as well. We don't talk about all the other things that's going on with these players as they develop later, the CTE and all that other kind of stuff that they have as a result of giving everything they got to a sport that didn't give a crap about them. So,
yeah. And I mean, it's true. I mean, at the end of the day, how they're looking at them is really just a piece of meat. They're really looking at them as property. They're not looking at them as men, as human beings. But that's also the reason why, when we send our kids to these HBCUs, when we're attending these HBCUs, it has to be about more than athletics. It has to be about academics as well. And so what do you say to the folks that, that are attending and they're thinking that, okay, I'm gonna make it to the NBA or the NFL, and they don't? Or do you think that HBCUs prepare them better than a PWI would?
Absolutely.
What's your experience?
Yeah, my experience, I went to 2 HBCUs. I went to Shaw University. I went to North Carolina A&T State University. And at both institutions, the first thing I learned about was having some self-esteem, right? And some just believing more about being Black. That was the absolute first thing. And then the challenges that I had to face, and I'll never forget, I had a professor by the name of Dr. Millicent Brown at A&T. Still to this day, one of my favorite professors. Anybody that went to A&T, I'm pretty sure they know who she is. She taught African American studies. Took me out to lunch one day, told me she would absolutely fail me if I didn't give my best. Right. So, and I was doing okay in the class, but you could just tell I wasn't giving my best. And those are the kind of things that happen at the HBCU that I don't think would have ever happened at a PWI. I had another professor, Dr. Bonner. I remember her just passionately speaking about Phyllis Wheatley as she went through her African American lit class. And everybody in the class just got quiet as she started weeping after she read, the passage that she was reading. And she started to go a little bit more in depth about it. It just gives you a different level of confidence. They hold you way more accountable a lot of times from what my experience was. I was never allowed to drop the ball. I was never allowed to be anything less than my quality. And so they made you do those things. And at some point, it goes from making you do it to you just wanting to be that. Mm-hmm. And then the amount of pride that you have just going to a HBCU period, it's a whole different thing, which many graduates can speak to.
Yeah, I know when I visited, when I visited different HBCUs, and my daughter attends Hampton, and I remember when I went there, I was like, wow, everybody is dressed like a model. Like, why is everybody at this particular school, everybody is dressed up? And I just remember. My daughter has sent me something in an email from, I guess, staff, and it said, ladies, you got to make sure that you present yourself in a certain manner because Hampton women don't, dress like this. Don't come out the house with no sweats on. Don't come out the house with no pajamas on. You come when you're coming on campus. You put your best foot forward, and I could appreciate that, right? Because it's inside and out. It's both. It's
Yeah.
it's they're looking at they're helping the kids holistically, and
Yeah.
the experience and the friendships that they get, going to HBCUs is experience of a lifetime. So I'm happy that I put my daughter in HBCU, and I really really believe that it's the best thing in the world for them. So I'm asking you guys. Is the NFL punishing athletes for attending HBCUs? Because not one, the draft just happened last couple of days, right?
Yeah.
And not one athlete was drafted from an HBCU. And there was plenty of talented athletes to choose from, but they didn't choose one. So if you want to join us, we're getting ready. We have Keith that's getting ready to get on. If you want to join us, text 209-362-4628 to get the link so that you could join us. We'd love to talk to you about that. So let's bring Mr. Keith on, Charles. Hey, Keith, how's it going?
Fine. How you doing?
Good.
I'm not gonna take up too much of you guys' time, but I do follow football a lot, and I think some of these, actually, I think most of these athletes should go to HBCUs over the big schools to let these big schools know the earning power that these athletes have. Like Alabama, these big football schools, they get a lot of money for these bowl games, and I feel like they just use these kids, just for their athleticism, But then again, the kids should be going there for their to get a good education. So I feel like more high school athletes should be going to HBCUs to let these big schools know that there is, let these big schools know that let them realize our potential and our power. Just quit going to the bigger schools, and maybe they'll get the point.
Mm-hmm. That's real. I mean, there's power in numbers, right? There's power in if you have, one person do it and then another person do it and another person do it, it's going to make a statement. And if nobody does it.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm just saying, if nobody does it, then it's never going to happen. And then when are we going to see some real change? And so, we have to, you're absolutely right. But how can we convince these young kids to go to HBCUs?
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. They want to go to the NFL and the NBA, so they got a better chance of going through the bigger schools. And it's not to say that athletes can't go to the NFL and NBA from the small schools, but the scouts ain't really looking at the HBCUs. But one guy I used to follow back in the day, went to Bethune-Cookman, Rashawn Mathis. He turned out to have a really good NFL career, and I used to follow him a lot back in the day, and I just feel like they take advantage of these kids just for their athleticism. But then again, like I said, they should be going to these schools to get a good education, because there's a good chance that they won't be going pro, after they graduate. So,
Right.
They need to focus on school. So if they're taking advantage of your body, take advantage of their, their books and education, So, yeah, but
come on.
more kids
right
need to go to these. Yeah, more kids do need to go to these smaller schools to let these bigger schools like Alabama, Ohio State. I'm talking football and basketball. I'm not really focusing on the other sports, but we all know football is a big sport here in the U.S. and Alabama. I'm focusing on them because they just won the championship. But these guys, I think with this NFL draft that just came out, like 5 guys from Alabama went in the first round. And honestly, if those guys that went to HBCU, would they have even won the championship? People need to start realizing, the talent that these kids have.
Yeah, you're right.
And I would definitely agree with you,
Thank
Keith.
you.
Yeah, in that, we don't look at it, but a large percentage of, especially with football, you have Walter Payton, you have Jerry Rice, you have Michael Strahan. And these are some of the top in the game, period, right? They all went to HBCUs. Steve McNair, Alcorn State. So there's plenty of people that went to HBCUs that have made it big in the NFL, and likewise in the NBA as well. What I would say, because I know there was a comment about 67% less of the competition. I don't know necessarily that it's always judged on the competition that you're facing on the field, though, because a lot of that, what they're being judged on, is what happens on their pro day. You know, when they have to go out there and they have to perform in front of these people. And it's just like an auctioning block, right? Where you have to go out there, you have to run, you're 40, you got to jump, you got to do all of these conditioning drills and everything else just to show how good of an actual athlete you are. And it's basically to say, how well will your skill set translate in the NFL? That's where you see a lot of the draft picks change, right? Depending on how well you do. And some people even opt out because they had a great year. And so they were like, well, I don't want to mess it up by going to pro day, right? Where I have to perform in front of these people. So you do see a lot of that. So I would challenge that to say that it's not always about just who you're competing against. But again, like the gentleman said, Keith said, if 80 to 90% of our African-American athletes went to these HBCUs instead of going to these PWIs, you would see the HBCU culture be completely different.
Absolutely. And I agree with Lisa Left. She said scouts will start looking at the HBCUs when all of us decided to go. We're 85% of the NFL.
Yeah.
If we all made a conscious decision to go, it would make a difference. But we allow the powers that be to control, and of course, just like you guys said, these kids have a dream of going to the NFL or the NBA, and they think their only way is going to a D1 college. And that's not necessarily true. But what can we do to convince these kids that they should be going? And I do know that, HBCUs don't have the same funding. There are those issues. But I say, listen, just like he said, if they're going to use your body, how many professors at a PWI is going to take a brother to the side, take him to lunch, and tell them, I'm going to fail you if you don't give your absolute best. I believe in you. You know what I mean? And so those are the types of things that you're going to get from an HBCU. So let's bring Reginald on. Let's see what he has to say about it. Hey, Reggie, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are y'all doing today?
Awesome. What do you think? What do you think about this? Is NFL punishing Black players for attending HBCUs?
I think that's a really good question, and one that should be asked across every PWI and HBCU itself. I think that there's been a sense of punishment that has gone on before a lot of awakening since last year has happened. And now we can see it actually unfold. Beforehand, we saw what we were looking at, but we really didn't understand how to explain it, I guess you could say. But to a great deal of that, like someone said, I'm from Mississippi, so I know it firsthand when I see it. I've experienced a lot of those type of things. But I definitely think that there's been a course of punishment, but it would be curtailed in a sense of this is just business in a capitalist society,
right?
You could say.
That's the excuse that they will use, but we know what it really is. It's just not enough talent. Oh, it's just not enough competition. But I mean, we know that there are a lot of talented kids in HBCUs. It was a very plain attack and what's the word I want to use? A punishment for these kids going to the NFL or to HBCUs, and it's very clear. And so, how should we counter that though? Is we should attack back. You know what I mean? We should. Then that means more of us should go. That shouldn't prevent us from going. That should actually encourage more to go, to say, listen, no, you are not in charge of us. We're gonna go. We're gonna make a difference, and you're gonna see us, and you're gonna recognize us. That's what I think. What are your thoughts?
Can I say quickly? I was having this conversation today with a close friend of mine. We have this conversation like almost twice or three times a week. In regards to that, I definitely think that they should really aspire to going to HBCU and take their talents elsewhere. To be honest with you, with this simply is what you've done and what you said with just starting, having this podcast is really important, because it's not just, it goes back, it goes past the HBCUs. And what I was saying today, I was talking to a friend, and we were given Nick Saban was the example, and I said, Nick, be that it may, Nick Saban's, he's a smart coach and all, especially to stick within his gene pool of where he knows how coaches know how the South is, know the Atlantic slave trade, et cetera, et cetera, generations of all the eugenics, et cetera, things like that, and to really utilize that to his benefit, um, and coaches like that, etc. But that's like, like you were saying, I think it's very important that they definitely understand why it is important. But that's difficult when you have like Warwick Dunn and certain players who lived in poverty for so long, and when they finally get that chance to shine, and they finally get that chance to make millions of dollars, they're going to take that chance. And I can't say that I've struggled like that in my life, and to know I've struggled, but not to the point of facing a near life or death situation. But to struggle like that and not to want to go back to it is all it takes for someone to take that opportunity and run with it once they
Mm-hmm.
get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Sheesh. Thank you, Reginald. That's a great feedback. Thank you so much for joining us. What do you guys think? Should Black athletes go to HBCUs? Is the NFL punishing these Black kids for going to HBCUs? And that's the reason why you didn't see one single solitary athlete from an HBCU get drafted in the NFL, and the talent was there. So let's talk to Christopher Petrie. Let's see what he has to say. Hey, Christopher.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good. We want to see your face.
Oh, I'm laying down on the bed. I'm actually just watching y'all on my TV.
All right.
Yeah, that's my face though.
Okay. That's all right. That's all right. So what do you think, Chris?
As far as, well, what was the question? I didn't hear the question.
So no, the question is, is the NFL punishing athletes for attending HBCUs?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that it's basically the whole system. And, that's kind of punishing the athletes in general. I mean, it's not even just the NFL, it's the NBA, the MLB, MSL, hockey, all the actual sports that we are looking at today, but most definitely in football, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the question on how they're being punished, and if you want to get deeper into it, as far as the recruitment and stuff like that, yeah, I think for sure that they are targeting our players to most definitely go to D1 schools.
Do you think Black players should go to HBCUs?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think my opinion, yes. I think that all of them. I mean, we have how many? 111 HBCUs.
About that.
What it's like? How many is like 60, 70 that has football programs? So when we start talking about those programs, and I mean, even when you said the stats earlier, as far as like 80%, 85%, that would drastically change the economic power for having our HBCUs, even not even just on an even playing field, but on a scale where it does tip on our side for the HBCUs to even get the endowment as big as Harvard or LSU or Alabama, as like the previous gentleman said. So yeah, for sure, I think they should. It was a couple of pieces where Jamil Hill wrote a piece about it, where I don't know if y'all discussed that before, because I just jumped in, where she was explaining how certain recruiters was just saying that they want to go to a D1 school because, now this may be the psychological mindset of how we look at our HBCUs, but they were just saying that they had, recruits to go to HBCUs for visits, and they didn't like the school because of the way it looked,
Right.
or they just didn't get the attention that they were looking for. I don't know if y'all read that piece on Jamel Hill, how she
I didn't
wrote
read
it.
it.
And
That's interesting.
yeah, but I think she wrote that about like 2 years ago. But she was saying that all of our athletes should most definitely go to HBCUs.
And that's it. One of the things that you said that I totally agree with is that if they start to go, it will shift the economic power, because I see a lot of people are on here are saying, listen, HBCUs can't compete with PWIs because they just don't have the money. What these athletes don't realize is how much power they have in choosing an HBCU and what that'll actually do and how the tides will turn. The money will follow, but nobody wants to be the pioneer.
And you have to really think about that too, from all the different bowl games. So like, I know just like you have the SWAC championship in Atlanta every year. That's really, really big. You have the Aggie Eagle Classic. You have the, like I said before, you have the Bayou Classic. You have some really, really big games between HBCUs.
Yeah.
Just imagine the scale if we did what we were supposed to do as a community and as a people, and just started to do more of what getting back to these Black colleges. Like that could be an everyday thing, because there's some epic battles between these schools, and the energy there, everything is exactly what you would want it to be. But more importantly, when the players are there, the people are coming more, which means that, and they're going to want to see it more, which means that there's going to be more advertising dollars behind it. More companies are going to want to get behind it, which means more money is going to go to the HBCUs to fund these programs and to do all of these different things. You'll have more sponsorships and everything else, which I think, in that way, they definitely can benefit from these opportunities for us if we start to use our power and take our power back to where we need it to be and start to grow and challenge the status quo and stop relying on PWIs to get us to where we need to be at.
That part. So the question is, and I'm always solution oriented every time I come on here, I want to know what is the solution. How do we bring more awareness to the HBCUs? Because that's a very, very big question. But how do we bring more awareness so that these young men will go to, young men and women, because HBCUs, we're the majority of the attendees at HBCUs are women, a great majority.
Yeah.
So what can we do to bring more awareness to HBCUs?
I think what's happened over the last couple of years, though, has really changed the landscape of that to a large degree. The things that we've seen just by and large throughout the world, really, and the things that happened with like George Floyd and Stephon Clark and all of these other individuals, it really did shed some light on the Black-white issue. Mm-hmm. And people started to make that shift more toward HBCUs. And as a result of that, also, you've seen a lot more organizational and government support going towards HBCUs as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you see like the NBA has a huge push for HBCUs now. And I think they should have done that a long time ago. A lot for whatever reason, they decided to go to these other countries first to do their little programs and pools where they could have definitely did those things in the HBCU communities first, build that up. But in addition to that, like I said, it just starts with us, right? It starts with us actually applying to these HBCUs. It's unfortunate that, and this is something that we don't really talk about, but on the West Coast where we are, HBCU culture is not really present, right? So you don't get to see all of the things that would make you want to go to an HBCU,
right,
as really as you would on the East Coast or down South.
Right.
It's nothing to see a drum line. It's nothing to see Greeks. It's nothing to see any of the things that are really, really prevalent down South and on the East Coast. But it's very, very difficult to have that same culture on the West. So we have to somehow bring that to the West Coast in much more abundance as well, and just start driving our kids. Growing up kind of in between, and most people from the South and from the East Coast would tell you, especially that went to HBCUs, is going to an HBCU, it really wasn't an option for them. It's like, this was the choice.
Yeah.
And so, for parents, we have to make that same push. Like, this is the choice. This is not an option.
That's what it is with my kids. They know. Yeah. They try to fight me, but they know.
Yeah.
I know for, when you talk about, just being on the West Coast, you're absolutely right. I mean, we're in California. When my daughter was telling kids at her school that she was going to Hampton, they were like, what's that?
Yeah.
Where's that? Why did you decide that college? They know nothing. A lot of them know nothing about HBCUs over here. And so, you have a whole, and like, I mean, we got the internet now, just like people were saying, we need more media support. We need more stuff on TV. We need more pushes so that people are more familiar with HBCUs, because that's part of the problem is a lot of these kids have no clue and no idea that these things actually even exist. So thank you guys for that. The comments. We do need a bigger media push. We do need more, endowment funds. We do need more alumni to go back and support, but we need more visibility.
Even those who are not alumni, you had the gentleman a few years back that who donated to the whole Howard University class, right, and paid their student loans.
Their student loans, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, and there's philanthropy like that can be done on a regular basis, especially with some of our people that are million and billionaires, right? It doesn't have to be a whole class, but it definitely can be a few. And you see it, you hear about it, because you hear about people like Denzel, who sponsored the brother from Black Panther. I don't know why his name is.
Chadwick Boseman.
Chadwick Boseman, yeah, how he helped get to graduate school.
Yeah,
you see it on a small scale, but these are things that we got to promote too.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of money out there. There's lots of power out there, but there's just not a whole lot of visibility. And I like the question. They said, somebody said, what are the practical steps that we could do to make it happen? And those are good questions, and those are things that we need to ask ourselves. What are the practical steps, Letroy? What are some practical steps, action steps we can take to make this happen? And I want to know too. And so that we really have to put our thinking caps on, because I don't have all the solution. I don't know. I do know we need more attention. We need more visibility. But what are some practical action steps we can do to make this happen? How can we bring more awareness to HBCUs and the importance of it? Because you look at a lot of people who are successful. Most of the successful Black people have gone to HBCUs.
Yeah.
They're not the big fish that, in the small pond. They're actually in a culture where they're able to thrive. And so let's bring on Dr. BRG. Dr. British.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Mama?
Good. I'm getting a little bit of feedback, but I'm just going to go ahead on. But I think one of the key ways that you can have some practical ways. Oh, I just lost it.
Can
you hear me?
Yeah,
okay. So one of the key ways that I think some practical ways to really bring awareness, I think even right now, like what you're doing, even bringing some HBCU school of education. I work for a school of education, and really kind of talking about like what they're doing. Talk about all the good works that they're doing. I think also talking to, HBCU fundraising departments to really kind of talk about like, what are some of the needs that they really need in order to bring in more students, to really kind of talk about what are the fundraising initiatives as well, because I think that that's a key component, especially for smaller colleges. We kind of look at the big colleges, Howard, Spelman, all those colleges, but what about the smaller ones? I think that's a key component as well. So I want to know that.
You're absolutely right. And you got to think about it. Just like the gentleman said, sometimes they'll go, these kids will go to these colleges and they'll look at them, they'll look around, they'll say, look at the facilities, it looks a little raggedy. I don't know if I want to be here. And, it is what it is,
That's not all of them. That's another thing. That's not all of them. Thank God for Morehouse, the gentleman who paid for all of those students. He was at Morehouse and he paid for all of those students, their loans. Yeah. But a key thing is to really bring in recruiters from HBCUs to kind of really talk about, how, students can get into the schools, what's needed. I think that's very important as well.
Let's do that.
And I don't think that that's really kind of talked about. I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm passionate about HBCUs.
I love it.
I work at Howard. And then PhD program at Howard as well, PhD in higher education. And so, that's just a kind of pull there as well. Go to Howard,
I love it. Thank you for that, because I think we will do a segment, a show with recruiters and stuff. Let's get your number. Let's get her number and let's reach out to her. Maybe she can get us a recruiter from Howard to come on the show and a couple of other colleges.
I can get Anthony Jones. I can get him. He would be a great person. So yeah, I know I look really crazy, but you guys were talking about HBCUs. I said, you know what? I'm gonna get on here.
No, thank you. So make sure you keep her number, Charles, and we're gonna reach back out to you to contact the recruiter. But we definitely want to get some recruiters from other colleges as well. So some small colleges, some large colleges, but we want to get some recruiters on there because just like you said, Dr. BRG. What's your name?
Soon, Dr. BRJ. Soon I'll be Dr. One day. Yeah, in 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just like you said, we need to be able to see what that looks like in real time. And I think that if we had people on that really explain what's needed to get into colleges, what they're looking for, it's not as hard. And then what the experience is going to be like once they get there, I think more people will be open to it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So wait, before you leave,
I was going to tell her, just do me a favor and put your name in the text thread just so I have all of your information saved, and that way we can get you going for the one with the recruiters.
Dr. BRG got off there so quick. Thank you. She was nervous, but she gave some good information. So make sure you text Charles the information, Dr. BRG or BRJ, excuse me, BRJ. But what should we be doing? And so what are some practical steps? And I love the fact that she came on and she offered us some practical steps, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure we have some folks from some HBCUs come on here and talk about what it takes to get into HBCUs.
And she made a great point about and I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit, but definitely about just demystifying some of the ideas behind these HBCUs. Some of them have very, very beautiful campuses. They're just amazing. And more importantly, a lot of the HBCUs, it just depends on who you are as a student. They are geared for you. So if you're not the type of student that needs a big environment, A&T probably wouldn't be great for you, but Shaw or St. Augustine University, or maybe even Central would be a good school for you, But if you thrive in a big environment, definitely go to an A&T or some of these other schools. So there are variations of these different schools. Langston University, that's closer to the West Coast, that you can go to. That'll just get you going. And some, like I said, they're very beautiful campuses. A lot of rich history, though, definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. Now we got Miss Davita Jones. We can't see you, Mama. Turn your light on so we can see your pretty face. We can't hear you. You're muted. She's muted. Unmute yourself. You got to unmute yourself, baby. There, almost. There we go.
I'm in the car.
Okay. How you doing, Mama?
I am good, thank you.
Okay. So what do you think?
I'm listening to y'all. I think a whole lot. So I have a couple of friends that played in the NFL, and I'm trying to call them, so I can give you their answer. I think you. I'm gonna get my telephone and Constance, you're one of my Facebook friends, and when I get them on the phone and ask them why did they choose to go to the school they went to as opposed to HBCU, I don't know what they have to say.
Davita, you're cutting in and out. Shoot.
Okay. Did you hear anything of what I said?
You said you have some friends in the NFL?
Yes, and I said I'm going to get them on the telephone and ask them why did they go to an HBCU as opposed to the D1 schools that they attended. Because hear from the horse's mouth, you'll better understand it. And I also think.
Go ahead.
Did you hear me?
Yeah, you said I also think.
Hold on. Let me grab my boots. Let me go.
You said I also think.
Okay, is this better?
Yep.
Is this better?
Yep, it is. You said I also think.
So I have friends that play in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna ask them why did they go to an HBCU as opposed to the school they attended? That way we can hear it straight from the horse's mouth. Okay.
And you know what they're going to say?
I think like you got to stand, if they can say it again.
I said, you know what they're going to say? They're going to say there wasn't any talent pool they're going to tell you because there was no talent over there. That's what they're going to say. But you also think what?
Well, they're both in California. So you were talking about how in California, they don't have the exposure to HBCUs like we do in the South and on the East Coast. But I just want to hear
Mm-hmm.
from the horse's mouth. But I also think, like y'all were saying, it's exposure. A lot of athletes, they will choose to go to the bigger schools because they feel like they'll get more exposure.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just, I just think, it's because a lot of them don't realize that, going to an HBCU, you can still make the pros because as the young guy, the man was saying, Jerry Rice went to one. It's
Yeah.
few and far in between, but I do believe, your dreams will come true going to an HBCU. I went to
Mm-hmm.
one, and as
Mm-hmm.
somebody was talking about, you don't even know about them, like on the West Coast. I'm from California. And when I
Mm-hmm.
decided to go to college, I knew I wanted to go to a black college, and I wanted to go to
Mm-hmm.
Spelman. Spelman didn't
Mm-hmm.
have my major. My counselor said go to Clark. I said, "Where's that?" She said, "Right across the street." So we don't know about a whole lot, of the black colleges, just because we don't know, and it's
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate. And what we do know can be negative. Like, I went to school back in the 80s, and I saw School Days. That didn't make me want to go to a black college. You know what I mean?
What?
Not school, no, because it was all about light skin versus black skin. I thought that was crazy. So that didn't make me want to go. But I went to Clark, and as I'm at Clark, because School Days was filmed in Atlanta, I didn't see light versus dark. I thought that was crazy. But just
Yeah.
because I'm not about that, I don't get into that kind of thing with our culture. So I didn't see it. It's not to say that it didn't exist, but I didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Even going to Clark, they say, the pretty girls are at Spelman and not at Clark. I didn't see that either. I just don't get into that kind of thing. But the question is the NFL, not being fair to the kids that go to the HBCUs? It's sad, but it's the reality.
Mm.
And I don't know
That's
the answer. I just
unfortunate.
think, exposure. I just think we just need to educate our boys and our girls, the athletes, and let them know, you can go to Howard, you can go to Morehouse, and still your dreams will come true.
Yeah, you're right. And I think, thank you, Davita. I appreciate it. Thank you for being on here with us today, lady. We appreciate you.
And it's pronounced Devetta.
Oh, I'm sorry,
No
Davita.
problem.
Thank you for the correction. Thank you. Yeah, and I think if we had some really really good athletes, and thank you again, Devetta. If we have some really really good athletes that made the choice, other people will follow. Not the mediocre ones, but like some really really good athletes that decided to go to HBCUs.
And that's what we saw in basketball, though, in this last year. Like I said, that you have the top. I think Mikey Jones out.
Mikey, my kids keep telling me about that.
Yeah, he's going to Norfolk. I think he's
going to Norfolk?
He's going somewhere over there. I think he's committed.
Wow.
It was Norfolk or Wilberforce. He's going somewhere out that way, but he committed. And then you have Shaq's son that's going to TSU. So you got different 4 and 5 star athletes that are going to these to these HBCUs, which is great.
That's dope.
I just want to see it happen also more on the NFL. I mean, on the football side as well.
Yeah,
it would be great. And I think it was interesting because I was listening to a little story that they were talking about Mike, and and they were talking about him and all of his friends though had made the decision that that's what they were going to do.
That's dope.
So it's kind of that same kind of force, right? Like we because who your class is.
Mm-hmm.
The class of 2022, as we move forward into college, we're going to choose to go to an HBCU as Black students. That's going to be our preference, and it changes the game, right? And it's interesting. It's something that we didn't talk about, but I want to mention it because I feel like it's important. There was a point in time, and I'm going to use basketball for this particular reference, but there was a point in time when there was the ABA, and then you had this Black League.
Mm-hmm.
And the Black League was getting so much attention. This is pre-Harlem Globetrotters. This is when the Harlem Globetrotters were a real team, and they weren't just for show. You had all these different teams. They were so good, and they were getting so much attention that it was driving attention away from the ABA. And it was the same exact thing for the baseball as well. The Black teams were so good, and the talent in the games were so good that the majority of people were going there to watch the games.
Wow.
And it ended up happening, and that was, by and large, a portion of why they started to allow African Americans into these predominantly white leagues. It was because these teams were good. In fact, the Harlem Globetrotters, and I forget the name that they were going by at that time because they weren't the Harlem Globetrotters, they beat the champions from the ABA. So,
wow.
These are the type of things historical things that we need to know about and we need to learn about. But that's how you get, like, you know, why does a person like Satchel Paige and all these other people get recruited to go to the major leagues? Is because of things like that, right? Because these programs and these teams are so good, and we got to get back to a place of being that, right? Like, let's go ahead and bet on Black. Let's go ahead and make these Black programs as successful as they can possibly be. Let's bring all of the energy back over to not Black over here, but back over here, right?
Black over here too.
Yeah, and then let's move forward, and then from that, you know, let them have to make the hard decision about how they treat us, right? Because now we're not going back because we can't go over there. We have the choice to be over there. You're just not treating us the way we deserve to be treated. So we're gonna do our thing with our people, and then we're gonna, like somebody else said, make our own sports leagues. I think that would be much more entertaining than all of these other leagues. Yeah, you know, so.
It wouldn't even be fair. It wouldn't be fair.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see the game, right?
Yeah.
That type of environment. But I mean, the reality is what it is, and we haven't, for whatever reason, taken back our power as it relates to sports and entertainment. And the more we do that, the more we make that shift, I feel like the better off we'll be.
And like somebody said, you know, these conversations are critical and crucial to making that happen. And so now not only us talking about it, but then we have thousands of people that are watching, and they could also in turn have those conversations with other people and make sure you're having them with important people, and also make sure that you're sharing this out with people, because this is stuff that we need to bring awareness to. HBCUs are extremely important. We need to be able to support them. Our kids need to be able to get exposure, and we want Black colleges to stay around forever. Because there's a sense of longing, there's a sense of family. The culture is unlike any other thing that these kids are experiencing. And so they're very necessary. So if we can get the funding to back it up, and I'm telling you, that funding, it will follow if we can get these kids to come and support these colleges. And I'm loving the fact that, you know, Mikey and his friends have decided to go. We go on to HBCUs. We don't care what nobody says. That's awesome. If we can get more kids to do that, that would be amazing. So, you know what? We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. I got to go to my son's basketball game tonight. But thank you guys for tuning in, and all of you guys being so active on here. And as always, you know, you guys, everything that you guys put on here is a critical piece of the show. And so we love the folks who joined us today, Davita and Reginald and Keith. And there was one other person, I can't remember the name, but thank you guys for joining us tonight. We sure appreciate it. Make sure that you sign up for Constance Carter VIP. We would love. I'd love to see you in the Constance Carter VIP. And we could, you know, do a Q&A and answer all your questions. All right. So thank you again. As we leave, make sure you're subscribing and hitting the thumbs up to Fly Nubian Queen and Nobody Works Harder Than Constance Carter. You also can find me on Instagram at I am Constance Carter. Where can they find you, Brother Charles?
CJC Solutions. That's on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, dope. Peace out, y'all. Thank you again for joining us.
CC, CEO, wanna change your life? Come see me, yo. I'ma teach you how to build up wealth for your family, not just for yourself. I'm a bestseller, a house flipper, a businesswoman, a go-getter, a big investor, a gold builder that can teach you to get richer like millions, baby. You really about to fill your savings. You about to have multiple streams